All right, we're back at the Pabst. We're back for more shenanigans. We got some familiar faces, he already told you, but also some new faces, people you've probably never seen, which is good. So quick word about Myths in Milwaukee, or as we're now called, Myth Informed, if those of you, the 10 people that watch our podcast. We're very humble folk. We've got secular roots. We're best known for daring to question the existence of Jesus and refusing to back down to keyboard warriors. And obviously this, fucking MythCon. So there's that. So, it could turn into one. So for the past year and a half, we've kind of done a pivot. Those of you that know, we started off super secular, super atheist. Nothing wrong with that, in fact, encouraged. But we've pivoted more to social politics. So we have an updated mission statement, very classy. We promote viewpoint diversity to limit the effects of authoritarian ideology. It sounds, there you go, there you go. It sounds super smart. I'm glad you're clapping for it. And basically, as we promote conversation, that promotes freedom, yada, yada. No, it's good, it's good. So why we're here today, get out of our echo chambers, because obviously social media recommendations do not help you get out of those thought bubbles. And why do we have to burst them? Well, because thought bubbles lead to radicalization and bad ideas, like white supremacy, or Antifa, or thinking that the earth is flat. We got any flat earthers in the audience? No? No? That's fine. I'll make fun of you later. Anyway, so last year, we introduced this concept of talking and, frankly, yelling sometimes at each other on stage. And it wasn't perfect. We had some lessons learned, obviously, like have a friggin' moderator, maybe. And obviously have people that actually want to be here. So why is that concept important? Why is differing views valuable, if you believe in that? Because a bunch of people on stage that agree on everything is frankly super boring. And thank you for the 2 people that clapped. I mean, you're clapping for boredom. When we disagree, we learn to break away from bad ideas and strengthen, you got to steel man your argument, right? Dissidence shakes loose valuable kernels of truth, a wise man once said, and that was me. We can all agree that groupthink is disastrous. Yeah, it is disastrous. And in the, let me read this quote. The immortal words of the late, great, possibly greatest man of all time, Christopher Hitchens. Thank you. I really hoped there was going to be applause there. Do not take refuge in the false security of consensus and the feeling that whatever you think, you're bound to be okay because you're in the safely moral majority. Clap, 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 clap. It's good, it's good. So the lineup today is anything but a consensus. You got people from all backgrounds, walks of life, and people have asked the question, why do this live? Why not just do it online? Because everyone and their mother does a hangout or a live stream, and there's enough of that. We basically live on our phones, we live on our screens, so sometimes you actually need human interaction. And the other thing is common decency with online anonymity is completely lost. It's bullshit. So, I guarantee that the chatter here among you and when you're out there is going to be significantly better than the comments section of any friggin' live stream. Now, a quick word about shekels. I've heard this insane rumor that we're mad profiteers. I guarantee you that without fail, this event loses money every year. So, some people say that we're idiots, and I'm not here to dispute that, by no means. But honestly, this is a labor of love. Myself, and I'm not even the most important one, we'll introduce our team later. We all have full-time jobs. This is just like a side gig, basically. And again, we don't make money, so it's not even a gig. I don't know what it is. Yeah, we all do that, but it's because we believe in free speech and we believe in in-person conversations. So hopefully you guys do too. And honestly, the only way that we'd be able to do this is through the amazing contributions that you guys make by being here with the GoFundMe campaign last year and with the seismic financial contributions from our board members, Brian and Mario. Without them, without you, this couldn't happen. So thank you for bringing MythCon here. So now a few details, some ground rules. As you probably noticed, outside of this beautiful hall is a hallway and windows and a bar, and backed by popular demand, the debate station, which if you don't check it out, I don't know what you're doing. Yes, thank you. Go check out the debate station because the topics this year are phenomenal. And if it's just like last year, then you may have some speakers, some special guests, some celebs going to debate with you. That'll happen. Now, the schedule of events is posted. It's online. You guys got programs. They're gorgeous. There's that. We have one dinner break. It's from 5 to 6, but honestly, who needs to eat? So, you know, we're all trying to lose some weight. There's going to be the Jason Seed Stringtet playing, and I promise you're not going to want to miss that, especially if you have, like, Radiohead, maybe a little video game music. You may want to skip dinner. I don't know. That's from 5 to 6. And, food promotion, just in case you guys want. We have a special with a kind of a bar that's 4 blocks away called Sport Club. So they have happy hour pricing all throughout the event. Just tell them you're with MythCon. Now, regarding photography, very cool. Go to town, do it. Take a snap here or there. You guys use Snapchat. That's all the kids are all about it. Recording, please refrain from that, especially here. We're gonna have like angry people walking the aisles, trying to to moderate that. But out there go to town, man. The debate station is YouTube gold. You're gonna be famous if you capture something amazing. So do that. Now, yeah, that's the live stream. Don't worry, the myth-informed folks are going to capture. We have like 3, 4, I don't know how many, 17 cameras around. So all of this is going on the YouTubes in a few days. You're all gonna witness every amazing moment. For the Q&As, I think everyone knows, no life stories. I will cut you off like a motherfucker. So, yeah, and other people will, potentially. Now, our lineup for today is unbelievable, and what a better way to kick things off than by paying homage to what is near and dear to us, atheism. So, how has the political climate divided the atheist community? Some of you may not know that it's divided, and that's half the fun. I didn't say that. First up on stage, we have David Smalley, Mr. Beautiful Blue Eyes himself. Everyone's going to be able to see it. David is a podcast host, speaker, activist, author, and comedian. He's much funnier than he was previously in his career. He's amazing. He combines his love for entertainment and media with his passion for skepticism, truth, and equality by putting on the Dogma Debate, which I highly recommend. David has appeared on CNN, Fox, and The Adam Carolla Show. And when you see him in a moment, in case you're wondering, the carpet definitely does not match the drapes. Welcome, David. I love you too. Next up, we have Vadim Newquist, comedian, political pop culture commentator, and humble servant to YouTube's Creationist cat. He's an Upright Citizens Brigade veteran and former member of the award-winning comedy sketch group Mr. Ass, featuring John Daly and Brett Gelman. And you might want to know that at some point when he was a teen, Vadim actually kicked the lead singer of Skid Row, Sebastian Bach, in the head. Might want to ask him about that in the hallway. Welcome, Vadim! Jaclyn Glenn is an incredibly talented singer, actress, and YouTube content creator with over 700,000 followers. Her content varies from the serious to the humorous, as she draws on her science background to address supernatural claims. And it just so happens that most of you guys in the audience are in luck because she actually dates douchebags that wear more makeup than she does. Welcome, Jaclyn! Now, please welcome to the stage a famously rugged Canadian who's made a name for himself as an atheist YouTuber, Greg Fleur, and I am definitely pronouncing that wrong, better known as Armoured Skeptic, has a penchant for debunking myths promoted by religious fundamentalists with a little bit of wit and a lot of creative imagination. And it also probably won't shock you to find out that Greg has a very unhealthy obsession with Star Wars. Welcome, Armoured! And finally, moderating our lovely discussion will be the distinguished Stephen Knight, a blogger and host of the award-winning Godless Spell Checker podcast. As a critic of religion and proponent of freedom of expression, he's perfectly situated to preside over this here discussion. Now, Stephen hails from far-off England, Manchester to be specific, and this is the first time that he's seen Milwaukee, also the first time that he's seen the sun. Welcome, Stephen.
Size of that face. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and those who don't appreciate my oppressive binary labels. This is going to be a great discussion to get things moving with. I'm going to try to be a very unannoying moderator and just get to the point as soon as possible and try and give an air of professionalism to the conversation. So, without further ado, David Smalley.
Yeah.
Why such a dick?
You know what? I told him I would give him until 11:30. Bye, guys. It's in my nature? I don't know.
Good word. First question, then, really for you, David, is are we off to a false start with the term atheist community? Is there even such a thing? If so, what does it look like? Who's the mayor? What's the membership card?
Yeah. I think the reason there's so much debate around that is because there are multiple communities. I think the online community is different, and then even within the online community, there are certain groups that you pay attention to, certain ones you don't. And I guess just overall...
That's not my fault.
God.
Who dat?
Acts of God.
I guess just overall, it's this idea that I think a lot of us, maybe not a lot of people here, but for the most part, a lot of people who are atheists today started in some way religious, and we sort of felt like we were breaking away from a family or a community when we left that religious ideology. And so it's hurtful, I think, whenever your second family starts to turn on you, or you start fighting within your second family, and you're like, is this happening again because I dared to question something? And so the community, what you thought you had as a community, seems like a facade, I think. So I don't know that there's ever been a solid community. There's always been these little pockets of people that sort of agreed and disagreed. And I think we had the illusion of a solid community, and there never really was one.
Jaclyn, you're well known for your prolific content on the YouTubes about God and religion and criticism therein. And I've noticed a lot of your content's moved away from that in recent years. You've sort of branched out in your interests. And I was just wondering, are people getting bored of the God debate? Is the God debate dead? Do people want a little bit more from their political commentary now in these skeptic circles?
Yeah, I don't think the debate is dead, for sure. And I've actually brought it back quite a bit recently. I've been doing a lot more atheist content. I think I deviated from it for a little while, just because, like anything, you know, if you talk about the same thing long enough, like personally, I didn't feel that I could add more than what I had at that point. And, you know, I was frustrated with a lot of things, in particular with a lot of the infighting within the community. It was just sad to me to see all that happening, and I stepped away from it for a little bit, but I'm back. I'm back now. I recently did a debate with Ray Comfort, which was interesting.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so, yeah.
He's my favorite satirist. So Greg, I mean, maybe you can give a little bit of a perspective. You've been a slight outsider in terms of hailing from Canada. And I get the impression coming from the UK, when atheist communities mentioned, it tends to just mean a bunch of Americans. It seems to be very insular in its focus, sort of a focus on right-wing conservatives in America. Doesn't seem a lot of focus on issues in the Middle East, ex-Muslims, things like that. I was just wondering, does the atheist community mean something different to you, hailing from Canada?
I mean, I've sort of become more accustomed to the American approach to these sort of subjects. Yeah, originally there was a bit of a miscommunication, like a communication breakdown, because I took a more relaxed approach to the atheist subject, at least at first. And I started noticing, especially when talking about politics, there was a lot of hot topics that I was touching on that I didn't realize had a lot of baggage behind them. And yeah, it took some climatizing to that for sure. It's no secret that the secular community doesn't really have much of a challenge in Canada, and really my decision to get involved in the atheist community was really just a personal thing. Even the videos that I make, originally, I didn't expect to get an audience. I was just working this stuff out in my head, and yeah, I feel like there are a lot of people like me who ended up kind of stuck in a weird religion and I've met other Canadians who said they've seen my content or Jaclyn's content and it helped them, you know, work things out. But yeah, I definitely still feel like a bit of an outsider, and I don't know that feeling will ever go away. I mean, it's cool that I get accepted, you know, by the broader audience now.
Would you like a hug?
No, I'm not into that.
Okay. Vadim, do you feel that you're part of the atheist community? I mean, what does that expression mean to you in general?
Well, first of all, I just want to say for everyone here, I've never really been a violent person, but Sebastian Bach really deserved it. But anyhow, to answer your question, I think that I sort of joined the atheist community, if you will, because I noticed that, like a lot of people, that there was just religiosity encroaching on our daily lives, our laws, and other aspects of our life in ways that it just hadn't previously. And I actually want to say that I think that right now, I think we're at a point where it's happening just as much as it was back then. As a matter of fact, I think it's happening I think the issue is more pressing now, and I feel like a certain portion, not everyone, but a certain portion of the atheist community is a little MIA on that. I mean, we have like Donald Trump, who percentage-wise won, like I think, or had more evangelicals and fundies coming out to vote for him. They are gaining more ground in terms of like the policies that they're set to put out there, and I'm a little concerned about that. So the reason why I joined the atheist community, I think that I would like to see like a return to, I don't know, more people kind of discussing these issues, because I just think that it's a little pressing right now, and it was never needed more than it is at this juncture.
Okay, so you just touched on something interesting there with Trump, which kind of leads into something I've been thinking about, and I'd like to put this to David. And I get the impression a lot of these conferences around secularism, atheism are overtly left-leaning, maybe to a fault. And I'm just wondering, are right-wingers or conservatives, are they kind of persona non grata in this sphere? Do we make welcoming noises to the other side, or do we tend to draw lines?
Can anybody understand what the fuck he's saying? Get a translator? I think I got it. I think it's funny that you mentioned that too, because it's weird to me, because I think this was the first time in a long time that the left actually put up a more religious candidate than the right. I think Hillary was far more religious, but still the evangelical vote went Trump's way.
Trump was doing a great deal to pander to them, though. I mean,
I think they both were.
He was doing more. I mean, there's footage out there of him like with just evangelicals all over him doing kind of like the, kind of like the God raise with the hands.
I think you guys are deterring from the overall question. Though.
I think you're right.
The question was, how accepting should we be of other viewpoints?
Okay, all right.
And I think,
I was just about to get to that.
Yeah,
yes.
I think.
Well done, Greg. Yes.
Yeah, I think.
What he said.
I think I used to be a little bit more of a hardline atheist. I used to be a there is no God atheist. We need to shut off. There's kind of a hype when you get into the atheist community originally. The most vocal people, the people that tend to get the most attention are the people who are the most shut off to the other ideas, that want to dismantle religion. And I've come to become a little bit more reasonable on that position. There's people that would consider themselves Christian who I think belong in our community, however you want to put it, just as much as somebody who doesn't believe in God at all. And I think that some of the things that at least the camp that I've been involved in are most interested in are, how do we maintain our freedom of speech in a society where, it's becoming more and more accepting to religion. And I realize that Trump is allowing more freedom of religion, and that is a problem for the atheist community, certainly. But
he's not allowing more freedom of religion.
Well, you know what I mean.
He's giving liberties
I'm using the American term
to the religious that simultaneously chip away at the liberties of
No, I understand.
secular
That's
people.
just the term that they use.
I want to bring Jaclyn on a question, because I've noticed that with the election of Trump, that's really politicized everything. You can't look at anything, consume any sort of media without sort of Trump spilling into it, unfortunately. And Trump's British slang for a fart, by the way, if you didn't know, so you can have that. But I think what's happened with us being atheists, we've typically gone for the creationists. We've been anti-theist and taken down religious preachers. But what's happened with getting more political is it's kind of shone a light on how much we differ in our viewpoints, and I think that's created a lot of tribalism. Whereas I think previously we probably thought we were not susceptible to that kind of thing. And it seems rife to me that we're all kind of developing our own little tribes in that sense. And I was just wondering, how do you feel about political tribes within an atheist kind of sphere?
I've always been very turned off by it. I mean, it's not a new thing, by the way. I feel like people keep acting as though now, all of a sudden, because people are focusing more on social justice issues, that in and of itself is causing a rift that there wasn't before.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I've been talking about atheism on my channel for like 6 years. And whenever I first started, I had never been attacked as much by any group more than the atheists. Because, religious people obviously would get mad by what I would say. But I was attacked by a lot of people who called themselves part of an atheism plus movement. And this was something that was going on a long time ago. And their idea was that if you weren't a feminist, and a lot of them were very radical feminists, that you weren't being a good atheist. It was atheism plus all of these other social justice issues. And I was like very opposed to that, and I would make videos against that, and I was completely attacked and completely shut out from a lot of different things. Like I went to an American Atheist convention, and people were very rude to my face. So this is not a new thing. I feel like because now it's like cool to be against radical feminism and against a lot of social justice warrior types. It's more accepted when people are out against that kind of thing, but it wasn't always like that. There's always been a divide, and I've always not liked it because atheism in and of itself has nothing to do with anything else. It's just that you don't believe in God. And I grew up very religious, and I like what you said at the beginning. You said that it's nice to have some sense of community because we came from a situation, a lot of us, where we were part of a family that we had to go through some kind of distancing from, or, we just don't feel like a part of anything. And it was difficult for me because religion was such an integral part of growing up. So to lose that and then to finally have a place online where I could relate to people meant a lot. So it sucked. It really sucked to have people just kind of come in and say, you're not good enough to be an atheist because you're not a feminist, or you're not liberal enough now is the thing. And it's just very frustrating to me.
And in a weird way, I think when I think I got started probably 12 years ago and started my podcast about 6.5. So I think content creation-wise, it's about the same. Mm-hmm. But I was an editor of American Atheist magazine. I was involved behind the scenes before I ever went public with my podcast and stuff. And for me, when I first started into it, it seemed very much about sort of what your other question was, which I sort of distracted from, which was we were sort of saying, even though our views aren't necessarily popular, we deserve a seat at the table. We were sort of petitioning sort of the American government to say, even though the Christian is the majority, we should be heard. Even though you don't like what we say, we should be able to say it. And so I find it really hypocritical of a lot of these individual splinter groups now of atheists trying to shut down other people they disagree with, especially other atheists. The divide that you're talking about. It seems that we sort of started off saying, even though we're not popular, let us talk, and now we're doing it to each other. We're silencing each other, and it's odd to me.
Vadim, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to say that I think that this stuff goes both ways. There's certainly on both sides those who are shut down people's speech in different ways. I mean, I think typically a lot of people think in this audience that it's more sort of like the term, I don't really take this term very seriously, but like SJWs are the ones doing it. I think that it's happening on both sides in various ways. And if I can, I'd just like to speak real quickly to what you asked about, kind of being more accepting of the right and whatnot. I'd like to say that absolutely. I mean, we should like foster or kind of encourage those who are kind of skeptics, who are right-wing, to kind of advocate for things like, those who actually believe in man-made global warming and things like that to be vocal, because perhaps they can help change the face of their political parties somewhat. But at the same time, I have to say that I think in general, this is kind of a trope, but and some may disagree with this, but there's this trope that liberal has, or rather reality has a liberal bias. And I think that that's somewhat true, at least no more so than in the US political system. I think that we have, just no equivalent of things like Pizzagate, QAnon on the left. We don't have an equivalent of Sinclair News or Fox News or InfoWars on the left. If you look at, hey guys, I will totally debate you on this. I know some of you are thinking TYT. No. I mean, yes, they're biased, but they're not InfoWars, dude.
They are the InfoWars of the left.
No,
Okay.
dude, no.
I just want to bring Greg in on a
So
topic.
about the divide.
Settle down.
I mean, in terms of trying to organize around a banner, atheists, I think, tend to have a bit of an identity crisis, because atheism is almost a piece of trivia compared to our identity and political leanings. And is it not better to sort of rally around the banner of secularism or humanism? I mean, you just look at an event like this. This was such a controversial event last year. Greg, you was here. And I just want to know what's the problem in the atheist community when a bunch of people can't sit down and talk to these fine deplorables?
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that I don't believe what Vadim just said, but one of the problems I noticed, at least on my side, was that my introduction to the atheist community was Atheism Plus, and I considered myself pretty progressive at the time, and I would today too if the progressive banner hadn't turned into something of a farce. And one of the problems I noticed from, I'll just say, for the sake of expediency, the camp that Vadim is most known for being associated with.
What is that camp?
Just the more liberal-leaning side.
Okay.
You said that you think that I don't want to be confrontational, but you said that you think that we should be more open to more right-wing people. But one of the things I've noticed, and I know that you've done this too,
Sure.
is you've used right-wing or conservative as a slang term, as slander term, and you've attributed that to people who it didn't belong to. And you've done that to me personally on Twitter several times.
Yeah, me too, actually.
Okay.
I've made it very clear that I identify as a centrist.
Can you quote that? I mean, I'd like to know specifically
I didn't bring a list of your tweets.
What you're talking
maybe
about.
I mean, do you see right-wing as synonymous with bad by default?
I think that when one votes right-wing, unfortunately, there are a lot of people here who consider themselves centrists, who I think have an approach to politics that in an ideal sense is nice. It's almost like a buffet where you can pick and choose what things you like, but in terms of application, that doesn't actually work. If you vote Republican, you're going to get more anti-science, policies. You're going to get more anti-education
Here's the
policies.
problem- here's the
you're
problem-
going to get
here's
you're going
the
to get an
problem with-
embrace. Let me finish. You're
Okay,
going
sorry.
to get an embrace of things like trickle-down economics, which has a mountain of evidence that says it's total garbage.
we're getting off
and
topic.
you get these things, folks,
we're getting off-
with
we're
those
getting- we're getting
with
off
voting
topic
that
now,
way.
because that's
So
not
just
a-
this is the last thing I'm going to say. Okay. Like, can you
We're
be
dividing this atheist community with politics right now.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
what's happening.
exactly.
All right. I'm fine with. Hey, I'm fine with dividing it as long, I'm speaking. I feel like I'm saying something true.
David, but like the whole point of this-
I have
I'd
one
like
more
to
sentence
bring
to
David
say.
in on this as well.
All right, fine. I wish I could say my last
Well,
thing.
you'll get a chance. We'll come back. No worries.
All right.
I think that's the whole point of this panel, is what the hell does that have to do with God not existing?
Exactly. Trickle down
Because
economics.
That's the point.
Because
Why
the
even
thing
bring it up?
is, all right. That's a fair question, and I'll answer it.
Here's the problem with the American system, not to sound too contrarian, but you only have two parties here. And that's like culture shock to me as a Canadian. Yeah. Both decisions are wrong. You're not better person for picking the better of two evils. And sometimes as an atheist, it's easier to say, oh, I can take on Trump because his religious ideas are easy to debunk. Someone like Hillary might be a little bit more difficult to challenge.
Well, okay, look, I think even though that you don't have to be a skeptic in order to be an atheist, I think that these things are somewhat connected, because, like in my opinion, if you haven't arrived at your atheist standpoint through skeptical means, then it's not really worth that much. And skepticism at its heart is the pursuit of truth. And again, you get more anti-science policies, you get more anti-education policies with right-wing, when you vote Republican.
No, why do you get to be the police on how atheist someone is? If
I'm
someone says
not-
I don't
I'm
believe,
not-
why do you get to
I'm
say
not-
that doesn't have any value?
Because the thing is here is, again, I am kind of lumping the things, both atheism and skepticism together. I think it's kind of important to discuss both of those things.
I like Jaclyn.
These communities have been, intertwined, and I really do think that it's worth discussing them both.
You put a lot of value on skepticism, right?
Yes.
In my opinion, if you truly value being a skeptic, you criticize or you analyze everything, every part of your value system, including politics.
Sure.
So my question, my issue with some of the things that you've been saying is it feels like you don't question any issues with the left.
That's absolutely untrue.
It is true, because
it's absolutely untrue.
Okay,
Go on.
We've had a bit of a disagreement before because I made a video with my criticisms of the left.
Sure.
And I still consider myself very liberal. I don't think that's changed. But I see a lot of problems with the left, and as a skeptic, I'm vocal about those problems. And you have come out and flat out said not to say those things publicly because you fear it will sway more people to the right.
That wasn't we can talk about that more. Like we talked about kind of having a discussion. Like I feel like that's a whole can of worms. But I'm just going to say, I came up with the hashtag, which did not catch on, surprisingly. I'm with her, but only because the alternative makes me want to shoot myself in the brains, balls, ass, and face. How
many characters is that?
So it's a lot of characters.
It's a whole tweet.
So surprisingly, it didn't really go anywhere. But my
Vadim.
point is that yes, I absolutely do think like there's a lot of things that one thing that is sort of synonymous with the left is GMO skepticism, which I think is absolute bullshit. And people who think that GMOs are dangerous, and I call that out. There are certain left-wingers who have been like 9/11 conspiracy theorists, and I will say that they're full of shit.
Okay,
so I am not reluctant to call out the left when it needs to be called out.
David, so we've touched on this topic of skepticism now.
Thank you.
So what are the key topics that separate skeptics from atheists that you've noticed? Things that you can touch on where you can realize, okay, well, this person doesn't believe in God, but they're not behaving rationally on other topics. What are some of the things that flag this up to you in your work?
Oh, this is one of them. This is a perfect example of, especially within an online community, if you will, of people saying things like, I'm a skeptic, I demand evidence for your claim. Unless that claim is about sexual assault, then there's no evidence required. Let's destroy this person's career.
So you're not in the camp of automatically believe accusers?
Not automatically, no. I think they should be taken seriously and looked into and investigated and not blown off, because that's important. But as Jaclyn was saying as well, I've said things before, consider myself liberal, but when I say the left is doing this, and I'm talking about Antifa or something that ridiculous that's happening on the left, and he's right here.
Antifa! No,
Okay.
no, I'm not really for Antifa, guys.
But anytime I say something on my show and I say the left, right wing gets thrown at me as an insult. They're like, because you're using right wing terminology or
Alt-right.
right wing alt-right buzzwords, then you're automatically Republican. And then all of this atheism, all of the work, all the charity stuff, all the separation of church and state, all the debates that I have on my show, all that's now out the window because someone has lumped me in with, whatever conservative they're demonizing that week, because I've used the same talking point that someone said on Fox News 3 days ago that I wasn't even aware of.
Question, and anyone can pick this up and run with it. And I've been thinking a lot about this, and I haven't really got a very concise answer. And what the fuck is the alt-right? I've never had
so
it seems like a catch-all term.
It's an insult people use when they don't
the
like what your
alt-right,
opinion is.
the alt-right is a very specific thing. There was a time when it just meant non-neocon.
Right.
But then, with efforts specifically from people like Richard Spencer, that got refined into a very specific thing. It includes white supremacy, nationalism based on ethnicity, very
This seems like a very small
very
number
specific
of people,
ideas.
but the response to it doesn't
However,
seem proportional.
because there was a time when it just meant non-neocon, non-liberal, that there's still like the mainstream, the greater conversation about right-wing things. There's no nuance in that conversation. Hillary Clinton, she spent time talking about the alt-right too, and this was before it had been properly refined down to the term that it means now.
I'd like to say just one thing. I agree with most of what you're saying. However, I think it actually did start with the...
No, that's a misconception.
But Richard Spencer kind of coined the term, and he had
But he didn't
he had a
own the
specific
movement
agenda
at first,
with that. And the thing is that they were always a large portion of the alt-right.
Oh, I'm not saying that
Yeah.
that there weren't white nationalists in the alt-right movement.
I kind of think that if like are part of a group where a significant portion of it is white nationalists,
That's called
then
guilt
get the
by
fuck out of
association,
that group.
and that's exactly
and start a new group.
That's exactly.
Listen,
that is exactly the lack of nuance that I'm talking about. How terms like this are used as slander because people refuse to learn what they really mean. And this is the same thing.
It's not slander. It'd be because of the fact that those people were genuinely part of that group.
It is slander when people call me alt-right.
It definitely
Okay,
is, yeah.
yes, you're not alt-right.
What I'm saying is that the greater
Alt-right.
conversation has lost all nuance. And I'm not saying that's by design, but it's easier for people to just categorize others, to dismiss them, so they don't have to worry about
Sure,
their...
but again, that works both
Because
ways.
not to toot my own horn,
Yeah.
but I'm a very reasonable person, and I say things that other people don't say. But to get other people to not listen to me, they'll dismiss
Okay.
me as alt-right
Sure,
or
that's-
conservative,
I want to bring David in
so
on
that
this
my
and then-
words
I
aren't
just
I'm
want to
gonna
say
hear
that
from
works both ways.
I'm not saying it
both
doesn't.
the people calling people who are alt-right who aren't, and then also people being called SJWs or just
Okay.
like various.
David,
Yeah. Okay.
how's the
Go
work on
ahead.
how's the work on the ethno-state going?
What? No. You were at the meetings. What are you talking about?
I'm the only one with the white chair
Acting
today,
like he
which
doesn't
is-
know what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
I think, and again, you guys are going back and forth on this, and to bring it back to the point of the panel, I really just have a question for you. If someone, let's say someone was super conservative, someone was not necessarily alt-right, let's leave the white supremacy portion out of it, let's just say they were, super conservative, neocon, whatever, and they did think that global warming was a hoax, and they did think that we never landed on the moon, or that the earth may be flat, and they have these issues that you disagree with.
Sure.
If at their core they are an atheist and they want a separation between church and state, why is that person not welcome to march or petition
I'm not
U.S. Congress.
saying that they're not. I'm not.
But they don't feel welcome.
Yeah, well, you know, again, I think that it's useful for us to talk about not just the atheist community, but the skeptic community, because of the fact that these communities are very intertwined. And
they are, but whenever we compartmentalize, we lose focus. That's the problem.
Yeah, we spread too thin as it is.
Right, and then groups end up blackballed. Don't invite him because he thinks this.
Honestly, like when we spoke about the issues that we were going to be talking about, we all agreed that we were going to be talking about both the atheist and the skeptic community. So I'm just doing what, you know, it's talking according to that.
Okay,
you know?
Jaclyn,
So there we go.
In terms of playing devil's advocate in the left-right divider, can we be guilty of being a little bit too soft on the right, in the sense that, I mean, I'm speaking for myself, but I swim in left-leaning circles, so I'm of the mind of keep my own house in order. When I see some left-wing lunacy, that's what I focus on. Because I tend to think sort of right-wing extremism is more or less taken care of in a lot of spheres. And do you think we may have become a little bit desensitive to the concerning issues of the right wing because of the lunacy on the far left taking up most of our time?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm not. I criticize the right way more than I criticize the left, but people pay attention whenever I criticize the left because they think, oh, well, you're a liberal, therefore you have to have allegiance to a side and you're not allowed to ever question it or criticize it or move away from it. I don't think that I've actually shifted politically. I think the political climate has shifted around me.
Yeah,
and because of
me
that,
too.
And because of that, I see these things on the left, and like you said, I keep your house in order, right? I feel like it looks terrible. Like imagine if religious people all refused to criticize a fringe group like the Westboro Baptist Church. Like imagine if they're like, we can't criticize them because we can't criticize our own. That's insane. Whenever I see somebody who's religious say, you know, I believe in God and I go to church, but I don't like the teachings of the Westboro Baptist Church. I disassociate myself from them. I respect that person more, and I view them as a more logical person. So in the same sense, I feel like if you are liberal and you're on the left, that's fine. But if you see behavior that is radical or embarrassing or you think makes it look, you know, bad for everyone, I think you should call it out. And I think that's doing a favor, not hurting you.
Does it feel religious?
Can we just hear from Greg first?
Sure.
I'll throw you back to you.
Go for it.
So in terms of calling people out on the other side and the right-leaning politics, do we have a blind spot there, do you think? Do you think there is a more of a focus on the left at the minute because there's a bigger appetite?
I'll admit there is. I don't know that you would call it that we're softer because because our disagreement with the right is assumed because of the identity that we've chosen.
But when we make positive noises about letting people with right-wing views speak on and be inclusive, does that create shade for some of the more nefarious?
I understand why that makes us look bad from an outside perspective, or from the perspective of an audience member who's used to tuning in to hear you complain about, you know, the latest creationist drama, and then all of a sudden you're complaining about, you know, the left or, you know, intersectionalism and stuff. But the problem is that people like me, like I do whatever I want. I make what I'm passionate about. And no matter how much I hate the right, how much I disagree with the right, I always get 1,000 times more offended when the identity that I've aligned myself to has gone off in some direction that I think is batshit crazy, because they're taking me along with them. Yeah. And I'd rather fix my own side, fix my own camp, because I want the people that I'm associated with to at least be open to the ideas that I believe. And really, when I ended up changing direction on my channel, I mean, I'm starting to go back like Jaclyn is, but I think that it was just because I was so upset that I was starting to feel more alone. And part of the reason I joined the atheist community is, like he said, it's kind of like a second family. It's a way for you to sort of, you know, come to terms with the new paradigm that you've taken in your mind. And that's never really left my focus, as being part of that community, being, you know, a good representative of that community, and wanting others that represent my identity to be also good representatives of that community.
And I think that's why it hurts more when the left does it.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's why we tend to talk about it, and I get told the same thing. You focus way more on the left, and for me, like, why do football teams huddle before every play? To make sure they're on the same page.
Gay.
They're talking about things to make sure they're on the same page. So before we go collectively gather and go petition the government for a secular cause, and then you see, two people over here fighting about whatever color bandana they're wearing, you're like, hey, cut the shit. We got something to deal with, right?
Yeah, freedom of speech is that.
Absolutely.
Those are the liberties
I'd like
are the
to
biggest
say,
important
look,
things.
can lefties be full of shit? Absolutely, And again, I do call these things out contrary to popular belief, okay? But I really do believe that there is an overemphasis on the, and these things should be kept in check. They should be
doesn't the left
scrutinized.
dominate the cultural narrative? I mean, the left seem to be in charge of most of public opinion in general.
Look who we have as president and who has a huge majority in politics right now. I mean, I think it's really ridiculous to act as if these, the small portion of crazy campus SJWs, if you will, are, people act as if they have way more political power than they actually do. And I'd just like to read a tweet real quickly from somebody who is actually in the audience here today. Maybe some of you guys know him. His name is Sofane. Shout out to Sofane. And I really appreciate this tweet, and I think it encapsulates some of what I came here to say, which is, hey, I love you guys, but I get tired of the constant defense of everything right-wing and the constant attacks of anything left-wing from a group of people that call themselves centrists and liberals. And I really do think that right there is an aspect
I don't think
of
anyone's
the schism
defended a single right-wing viewpoint.
in this community.
Defense of the right, though.
That's a kind of a straw man.
Yeah.
No one's defended right-wing principles or viewpoints here. We've just been talking about being open to having them part of the conversation, and usually in the hope of swaying their opinion.
I'm not saying that these people on this stage here, but I'm saying that a good portion of the YouTube community that I'm a part of has. I think that a lot of people are reluctant to discuss these things. I've heard a YouTuber that most people who's here today, Blair White, talk about how a lot of her friends are reluctant to discuss Trump because of they're afraid of losing fans and stuff like that. And I think that we're supposed to be people that keep it real, and I feel like people are reluctant to do so, possibly out of financial incentive.
Right-wing, though.
What?
Blair is actually right-wing, though.
Yeah, I know, but still, yeah. If she's saying that there's a reluctance to do that of some of her friends, then I think that really says something.
So Jaclyn,
I want
go
to
ahead.
ask what exactly you think it means to defend the right, because you said that you resonated with it. Because I get accused of that all the time. I get accused of defending the right, but the only thing I'm doing is asking people to not make a caricature of them, and to actually take them seriously, and not be like, oh, everyone on the right is, a redneck Bible thumper, and they're all idiots. Like, I want to take them seriously.
I think to a certain extent. Yes.
And I don't think saying that is defending the right. I think it's just treating them like humans.
Well, some people like actually defend the right at times when they shouldn't. I'm not saying that you
Example.
have. But I mean, I don't know. I
What
think
some right-wing
it's a
views that you feel atheists are defending?
What's that?
What are some right-wing views that you feel atheists are defending?
Well, it's sometimes it has to do with an embrace of certain people. Like, I mean, for instance, for instance, Jordan Peterson. This is a man who is both a climate denier. He was absolutely wrong about Bill C-16, the Canadian Bar Association issue.
He's a Christian. Well, he believes in God. He's a theist.
Yes, I understand that. But there is an embrace of people like this, of Ben Shapiro, of Steven Crowder, and I can't tell if you guys love those dudes or if you're like, yeah, you're right about that.
No, they love those dudes.
I think that they're fans.
Well, hold on, let's check it.
But
Steven Crowder.
All right,
just science. Just
fuck that guy.
Vadim, what I would like to say is, if your example of how the left has trouble deciding who to go after, if your example of that is right-wingers having trouble going after right-wing, then you should be elated that we left-wingers
No,
have no problem going after our own. And I think
Yeah,
that being able to keep ourselves in check, like that's one of the things that's great about our side is that we're willing to talk out about the problems that we have within our own camp. We're not lying about what Trump's doing wrong. We're not lying about what Clinton is doing wrong. We keep it real.
I think that there is this absolute straw man of my position that I think that it is like just that we should just not call out the left at all.
Why did you reach out to me so much after I posted my video criticizing the left? Why was that such a triggering thing
I
for
mean,
you?
a triggering thing?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, that is a you know, like I said, I'd love to have a discussion with you about it.
Let's have a discussion now.
It's sort of like a can of worms that I don't think that I can kind of succinctly put, but I think that
But you seemed so angry. Like you actually went out of your way to make a video to me, unlisted, telling me why you didn't like that video and asking me to talk to you about it. So I'm just confused why I mean, like I've been talking for years on my channel out against the right, against conservative ideals, against religion, and then I make one video.
We don't have a lot of time
one
here.
video, and then I got
we
like a
don't have
barrage
a lot of
tweets.
time here, and honestly, I don't think that I can kind of succinctly. I don't think I can succinctly put that into words.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay,
I mean,
so
David,
I'm not going to
harking back
tackle
to Jordan Peterson, who's a very popular figure, I'm guessing so in this room as well.
Who?
Jordan Peterson. So he's got some views that are the antithesis of atheism, I would say. They're not compatible at all. However, you can embrace someone like that based on other good work in certain fields. So, I mean, can we be like approaching a buffet in this way, pick and choose what we appreciate or value from people without casting them out completely?
Absolutely. Dan Dennett wrote a long time ago about what's called Rappaport's rules within argumentation. Yeah. And the basis of this is, one big piece of it is, until you can restate your interlocutor's argument back to them in a way that they would say, I wish I would have thought of it that way. You're not ready to make a counter argument against them, right? So we've got to be able to listen to these people and then respond to them in a way that's convincing to them. If we just straw man their arguments all the time, we're never hearing them. If we put them in bubbles and use them as insults, we're just going to stay in our own little bubble.
Are you saying that I'm straw manning them?
I'm saying that if we
use straw man me, I can give you an example of the time you've straw manned me. Is fairly recently on Twitter, you tried to imply that, or not, you just straight out stated that I believe that white people are oppressed. And when I asked you to demonstrate that, you just gave me examples of times where I said that white people have been singled out. And that, like, those are two very different statements. And it's not something that doesn't happen. And I'm not saying that your side is the only side that does it, but it is a pervasive problem, and it's one of the ways that the nuance has just been killed in the overall conversation, especially within the atheist community.
I just want to thank these fine primates for not strangling anyone.
Hey, this isn't over yet.
Yeah, well,
I am the timer.
Yeah.
If you haven't, like a human clock. So we are at Q&A time, guys. Yeah. Very exciting. So if folks want to, we're going to be lining up. There's a microphone right there. And we're going to have someone kind of standing at the mic. And so we got like 20 minutes of this. Let's make this happen. Yeah. Wow. Don't everyone all rush at once.
Wow.
Oh, shit, I'm leaving.
Oh my God.
No.
I'm guessing most of the questions are coming your way.
Can you just
a guess.
Our fearless leader, Sean, will be down there to moderate. Okay. Go to town.
Hey, Greg. I've been a long time fan of your
Can you speak
channel.
in the mic is like kind of low, so
Sorry.
you're gonna have to.
I've been a long time fan of your channel, Greg.
Oh, nice to meet
Since
you.
like 2013, I've been watching you, and I would love for you to elaborate how have your views changed on Atheism Plus, or are they still similar? And I also want to say to Vadim, with talking about the right-wing stuff in America, just remember, dude, Europe just banned memes.
I'm what?
Europe.
I'm banning memes?
No, Europe banned memes. The EU just banned memes.
Article 13.
Okay, all right, fine. I don't necessarily endorse that.
Okay, so Atheism Plus, like I said, was my introduction
I'm not responsible
to
for that.
My Atheism Plus was my introduction to the atheist community, and it was really confusing for me at the time. So I had a lot of, anger and frustration over the whole thing, and I've come to relax my views on it. And honestly, if the organization still existed today, I would just let it be. But I didn't know that it was feminism, or later to find out that it was intersectionalism that was the reason that it was such a cancerous movement. And it only just kept happening more and more. I mean, then there was Gamergate after that, and then Comicgate, and they just keep happening. Every community gets taken over. So it was unfortunate that Atheism Plus was one of the first, but I don't think that it's worse than any of the other progressive organizations that exist today.
This question is for the whole panel. An earlier question asked what place does right-wing people have in the community, and many of the answers sort of treated the right wing as a monolith, and I was interested in sort of a breakdown of different groups, more libertarian leaning, more socially conservative, more religious conservative. Are there any elements of sort of non-liberal persons that you think have a more natural place in the skeptic community or in the atheist community that sort of belong here with us today?
Maybe go from left to right.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, it's a beautiful question about nuance, really, because we can't just say right wing and shut everybody down. I think that's part of the problem that Jaclyn says. Well, maybe that's not what they meant. Now she's a fascist.
Yeah.
And if I go, hey, maybe they didn't cheer for rape at MythCon. Now I'm a rape apologist, and that just happens. And then you're a Nazi now because you said maybe we should listen to what that guy said and then argue with him. Like, that's part of the problem. Go ahead.
I don't really have to say much about this that I feel like I haven't already articulated. I just do feel like I encourage for portions of the right wing who kind of challenge the a majority that is actually in political power right now. I encourage these people to speak out, hopefully change their party. But the party is what it is, and you can't divorce the platform of the party right now from the from the right wing, in my opinion. You really can't.
I think you can, to a degree. I think everyone should be welcome. I don't think it matters what your political party is. Anybody can be a skeptic, and I think the more skeptics on the right wing, the better, because they can come out and actually make a huge difference within their own party, which would be a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
I agree. I think mostly, though, the biggest hang-up I have is that it's an oversimplification to just be able to throw the label skeptic or atheist on someone. I feel like as long as you have a common ground with somebody, it doesn't matter what you call them, how accepting they are to your particular viewpoint. As long as you can come to an agreement, and as long as you feel like you're arguing for the same basic thing, that's all that really matters.
Real quick, if we can just do questions for one panel member, otherwise we're not going to get to anyone. Thank you.
Oh, okay. So, first of all,
I did that on purpose, Chair.
Armoured Skeptic, I'm a huge fan.
Who's that?
So, I think an important thing you guys are missing is you're like, oh, why are you guys talking about the left? Why is the atheist community talking about the left now? I think it's more you guys are talking about feminism, and it itself is almost a religion. So it's like you naturally just like kind of shifted to that conversation.
I agree, and I was thinking that in my head, but it's hard to get to that. But that was one of the things that made us a community, is that we were all against dogma and against religion. And then when religion creeped into our community, it seemed like half of us were completely blind to that.
It's the same thing with politics, too. Like people are religious about their left-leaning principles, too.
The problem is that, a lot of creationists used to make fun of atheists for being a religion, and then after a while I realized it's true. There's a lot of very religious atheists.
And I think, I'm glad you said that. That's something I wanted to try to get into this panel. And I think it's, I think atheists may be more susceptible because we think we're immune.
Yeah, exactly.
We think we got to our level of thinking by rational thought, so now every one of my thoughts are rational.
I believe in science, therefore I can't be wrong about
Right, and then religion creeps up inside you in a political way, and you have no idea you're behaving religiously.
Again, I just want to add one thing, which is, yeah, absolutely, there are feminists out there who are full of shit, but it's a large umbrella, and there are those who are absolutely reasonable, And I think that there is, just like there are feminists who are capable of kind of looking at it in a religious way, there are anti-feminists who kind of are religious in their fervor towards feminism and towards things that are sort of associated with it.
Can't you apply that to the atheist community, though, this idea of umbrellas and different views? Because you seem to think that it's
well, I mean, we were just talking, I mean, how do I mean, it was just tied to the conversation.
Well, just like
So,
you
by
said,
someone else.
Like you said, feminism can have these extreme views and then reasonable and unreasonable.
Yeah.
You feel the same way about conservatives?
Yes, but yes. I do believe that there is such a thing as reasonable conservatives out there. However, there are not like the politicians that actually represent the conservatives these days. Absolutely are not. They are, and I'm not saying that the Democrats are like, you know, amazing. They're also quite corporate, and they're very bought out by special interests.
Guys, the next panel is literally on feminism, so we should...
I think the important thing here is blind allegiance to anything is not what a skeptic is. So you should question everything, whether it's religion, politics, feminism, all of it.
Agreed.
Okay, guys. Whoa, that's a hot mic.
Super hot.
All right, heyo. So, if I don't really mind who answers this, but I wondered if you could talk about the difference between a skeptic brain and activist brain, because I came into atheism as an activist, intersectional feminist as an activist. I have a purpose. And I wondered, as an atheist with no purpose, do you think that maybe your brain just doesn't understand that? Well,
atheists have no purpose.
Listen.
Atheism is as far as I'm concerned, atheism is just the default position that you come to once skepticism has made you realize that, not that there isn't a God, but, you know, that functionally we don't interact with one.
Absolutely.
So as far as I'm concerned, I should live my life. And that's the end of it. That's all that an atheist is.
The activism part comes in whenever you want separation of church and
there
state.
There are activists.
Yeah.
There are activists, and they all tend to, I mean, we tend to have the same basic ideas towards, you know, religious-related laws.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I even really got into talking about any of this on my channel was because I saw religion doing so much damage to people that I loved. Whether it was like, you know, a gay friend of mine who wanted to get married and they couldn't. Of course, there's a lot of activism behind it.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to see atheist activism on the front lines, you want to just look at the ex-Muslim community and the kind of things that they have to face and put up with, and the dangers that they face to their own, you know, personhood for standing up for that. So I can't think of a more important activist on the planet right now.
An activist is somebody who's decided to take it upon themselves to change something. Just because I, as an atheist, might see a wrong doesn't mean it's my responsibility to do something about it. And yeah, that doesn't make me a hero. And I mean, I have done something about it. But I'm just saying that we shouldn't belittle a person or think that their brain doesn't understand something just because they've decided not to engage in it.
I want to say one thing real quick before we move on. I'm glad you brought up activism. It's super important. But it's also important to point out that a temper tantrum is not activism. And skepticism, in its truest form, should be applied universally. And sometimes we don't see that. We see selective skepticism, where I'm going to be skeptical of this thing, but when someone that I really like says something, I'm not going to challenge that. We got to be careful of that.
My question's for Jaclyn. We guys talked a lot about the divisions within the atheist community, but I didn't hear a whole lot of solutions. I personally think that making connections between people who have more socio-political perspectives on the left, on the right, conservative, liberal, classical liberal, I think that's the solution. Okay. And in that vein, I'd very much like to buy you a drink later.
Oh my God. Wow. Bold. That was bold.
All right.
That's tough to follow.
Not bad. All right, my question is for Creationist Cat. Now,
thank you.
Yeah. You claim that there is no polar opposite to Fox News and the Alex Jones show.
Well, can I say real quick, in terms of bias, there absolutely is. But in terms of the bullshit that they spew, then I mean, Fox is better than InfoWars or Sinclair Broadcasting in some ways, but still, like, yeah, in terms of the bullshit, I don't think, and say like take TYT. I think that they can be full of shit. There are times where they actually make me facepalm quite hard.
Yeah.
Like especially with certain science claims that I've heard them make.
Do you say that publicly?
So I'm not saying that they're perfect. What?
Do you say it publicly? No, I'm saying like on Twitter or YouTube videos.
Sure,
Do you call them out and say what they say?
Yeah, on Twitter and stuff like that. Sure. Like
Okay,
for instance, there's a great YouTuber, Miles Power, who has made a series of videos about TYT, talking about GMO stuff, and you know, like I am totally like down. Like I like TYT. I'll just admit that. But at the same time, they're going to be, yes, they've been wrong about many a thing, and that's one of the reasons why you have to look at a whole variety of influences, both on the left and right, to arrive at what the reality is.
So you do agree that like they are opposite when you're talking like based off of bias?
Yes, bias. Yes, absolutely.
But like, what do you mean by like the amount of bullshit that has been kind of skewed?
I mean that that Fox News is very like in bed with corporations, and they are mouthpieces for those corporations. Whereas like TYT, like them or hate them, I mean this is a group that spearheaded. They're no longer Cenk is no longer a part of Justice Democrats, but they are part of an initiative to get money out of politics.
You're kind of apples and oranges, though, comparing Fox News to an independent, though. I mean, it would be more appropriate to compare it to CNN, who is a corporate interest.
Yeah, I absolutely do not think CNN absolutely has problems, and so does MSNBC. But I do not think that they are at all synonymous with Fox
Guys,
News.
we're going to go to the next question because there's literally an alternative media panel later also.
Okay.
So.
What's up, guys? My name is Adam. I'm one of those people on the center right that does periodically speak against the issues that are on the right, for example, like global warming. And one of the things that I learned is by not strawmanning your opponent, you start to learn from their perspective what issues they hold. So for example, I spoke with Blair the other day because I did the little $200 Patreon donation so I could talk to her, and we talked to her on this issue. So for example, like with global warming, I've realized that a lot of them in the 1970s, they talked about global cooling. And because we're right now in like the Halcyon epoch, which is like an interglacial period, I had to explain to them, what that meant and why the science changed, because that's what they're still remembering, typically the older generation, on that issue. And once I talked to them about that, and then I talked to them about things like scale, like one car is not a big deal, but when you have, 100 million cars and factories, the scale starts to add up. A lot of them kind of move over on the issues. So what other issues do you think we can reach out to, for example, on the right, to do the same thing to bring them more in line on certain topics using that kind of non-strawman approach?
Who do you want to ask?
Oh, it was Jackie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because she was talking about it earlier, not strawmanning right-wingers.
Okay, yeah, no, I mean, I think that it's been happening a lot. I think it happened with gay rights. I think, a lot of people on the right were initially opposed to that and then kind of came around to the other side. I think with scientific things, it's really important, like you said, with global warming. And I think my favorite thing that you said there was by not strawmanning your opponent, by not making them seem like this evil entity, you can actually relate to them on some points, and they're way more willing to hear what you have to say and have a conversation with you, which is another reason why I think it's so important to be open to criticizing your own side, because then people feel like you're not too intimidating to talk to, that you're reasonable, rational, you can have a conversation. So I think that's definitely very important, A lot of things on the right. I think right now one of the biggest issues that people on the right seem to kind of cling to that I disagree with would still be like the abortion debate. So I think if more people on the right could move away from that people on the left would probably flock to the right even more than they already have. Yeah.
So specifically, this goes out to Creationist Cat with regards to framing the alt-right as being mostly ethnocentric. So specifically, do you also see this also coming from the left wing, specifically when they try to frame issues of IQ against, say, homeschooling by saying only the smart people are going into these schools that are not going to be public, or in a specific state-sanctioned manner like in Brazil, for instance, where they actually took in Syrian refugees and they tried to argue that they'll raise the IQ of those living in Brazil by intaking these people who supposedly, now this is in quotations by their left-wing state media, as having higher IQ than those in Brazil. Would that count as a left-wing bias that's similar to that of the
Oh my
alt-right?
God, this question's all over the place. I don't feel equipped to answer your question. I apologize, but I don't like to speak about things that I don't have that much of a grasp of, and I don't really feel like I know that much about what you're speaking about. So I apologize for that.
Have a drink at the bar.
Sure.
I don't really know who this is going out to, but
Pick someone out of a hat.
whatever, Vadim.
Okay.
How do you define SJW, and do you think it should be more based on somebody's actions or more based on their political beliefs?
When the term first kind of grabbed hold, I thought that it was useful because there certainly are people who, and this is the way that I think it's a productive way to look at it, and I think that there are right-wing SJWs, left-wing SJWs, who will advocate for their side. However, they'll do it in a really ostentatious, sometimes obnoxious manner, and it is off-putting to their cause, and they shoot themselves in the foot. And sometimes also those people will throw in like incorrect facts with what they do. Now, I just also want to say that I think that the term SJW has gone on to mean something that, like, it just very, very quickly has now, a lot of people who use it mean it as just someone who is just to the left, or somebody who's just to the left of me. And so I don't really take the term very seriously these days by most people who use it, because I think it's been overused and kind of lost its meaning.
Last question.
Hello, my name's Serena. I'm kind of in the middle of a lot of people here, and this was originally going to be sort of addressed towards everybody, but I guess I'll address it towards you, Kat, because it's the most relevant to something you said. You were talking before about how you think the quote-unquote SJWs are kind of over, like their presence is exaggerated. And in debate, I've sort of had this problem with both sides, actually, where you point out that someone on this side did wrong, and they'd be like, no, nobody does that. But then you show them proof of them doing that, and then they're like, well, no, those people aren't common enough.
Who are you talking about? Like, are you talking about when I called out Jordan Peterson or Ben Shapiro or Steven Crowder?
Oh, I'm talking about when you were saying that you don't think that the campus people are as prominent.
No, I think that there is a problem there. Like I wouldn't say that it's absolutely like not an issue. But go on with your question though. I want to hear the whole question.
Well, it was just relating to what you said, but I think this is actually a problem that both sides have. But basically, it's this idea that people sort of arbitrarily claim that anybody who makes their side look bad is in the minority or doesn't have an influence. But when you get right down to that, they don't really seem to have any proof that that's actually the case. They just think that person negatively affects my position and my side. Therefore, I want to make it seem like they don't actually have power, but they don't actually have a real proof to back that up.
Fair enough. I mean, the thing is that campus culture for decades has been very left-wing. And one thing that I think is incredibly missing inside this conversation is we never talk about right-wing campus culture and how prohibitive that is. There are actually, people don't even realize this, but there are plenty of colleges, and yes, they're religious colleges, they're private, but they receive Pell Grants, they get tax dollars, and they are allowed to kick people out for being gay, for dress code violations, for having sex, you know what? I'm going to be making a video that follows up on this, and I'll definitely, and I've already made a video. There's a video, a CC video talking about PragerU that I made recently, and we talk about that. So plenty of citations in that video. Check it out. But yes, this is absolutely going on. And that's not even a part of the conversation of the ways in which campus culture on the right can be very prohibitive to freedom of speech. And I think it's a double standard.
Okay, guys, thank you so much. We're about to do a really big round of applause in like 2 seconds.